That's going right. Sweet. All right. Just a roadmap here quick. I'm going to go over the attacks upon our own case made by the opposition, and then move on to their crystallization points, and then give a few of my own here. All right. Let's start this. Okay. Just to go over the point, first they brought up the attack that they said that standardized testing was reliable and it correlates strongly with success. Again, they gave us a misnomer here that this was true, but it's not. Standardized testing, even within Lehigh, where you have a similar range of SATs and a similar range of academic ability, doesn't correlate to GPA. And I don't know the numbers, but it probably doesn't correlate to how much money you make in life, how happy you are in life. Yes?
Does it not correlate to the ability of one to get into an institution of higher prestige than another institution?
No, it shouldn't. The standardized test, it's deterministic. You determine the course of your life based on one test taken when you're 17 or 18. This shouldn't be the way it goes. And this is, again, brings up our point on discrimination, that people who don't have money are discriminated against, and it starts right when they're 18. You should at least give these people time to move on. And, I mean, you get judged from a very early age, and this is not what you want. And again, moving on to discrimination, they attacked and said that the tests are designed to avoid discrimination. But again, this is something where studies show that the tests do show discrimination. The tests, again, sure, standard deviation, they show, how well you do based on everyone else. But again, I mean, there are people who guess well. There are people who don't have the money to prepare. And I don't care what the opposition says, there's still the fact that you can buy your way to a good SAT score. And you see this all the time. There are plenty of examples, and that's the way it is. And one of the main things that the government says, or the opposition says, that all of this is unavoidable, and that you can't get rid of this bias from the system. But what the government is arguing is that while removing standardized testing might not make the system perfect, sure, there's going to be bias in interviews. We're not arguing that. But we are arguing that there will be less bias in an interview and actually meeting someone, but also then judging them based upon what they've actually achieved in life. That's something that the opposition didn't really attack. We said, sure, an interview, but also based upon what someone has actually done, like a resume. I mean, that's something that's already been judged and still is judged. But we believe that more emphasis should be focused on that, and that SAT scores should be taken off to remove bias. So that moves on to our third point. Now, just to go over here to some of the main points that the opposition made. I'd first like to address the notion that the leader of the opposition brought up, that numbers don't lie. And what I will say to this is that the SAT score is more than just a number. While it ends up being a number, it's based upon the test that you took, which is not a number. Inside those numbers are the assumptions that you made to get those numbers. Sure, if you assume that everyone knew exactly what they were thinking when they took that, you'll get maybe an accurate number. But there are some times when students, I have no idea, I'm going to fill in B, and that's right. There are some students who fill in, oh, I don't know, that's B, and we get that wrong. And aside from that, there are plenty of other bias. I mean, how easy a test, certain students will know more on a certain test than another test. I mean, behind these numbers, there are a lot of assumptions that the opposition takes to be true, but they aren't true, and that causes a lot of, again, unreliableness in determining how apt a student can be. And so again, the second main point they brought up is that, again, these tests, they don't correlate, or I guess the third point, that tests don't correlate, or tests do correlate to someone being able to do a job. And they said, like, if you're able to fill in directions, blah, blah, do that. And I would say that, I mean, the SAT is designed to be about as idiot-proof as possible here. I mean, they read you the directions, they say, fill in this. I mean, being able to do that is not anything like anything you have to do in the real world. There's no job on this country where you have to sit here, fill in, well, I think this one's B, this one's A. There's no job where you have to do that. In jobs, you actually have to think, not critically, but also, again, interact with people. And these tests do nothing to show how able a person is at doing that. So, moving on to our own points here that we'd like to make. Again, the first point is that these tests are unreliable. And again, there may be some correlation, but the correlation is not nearly as strong as if you actually get to know a person. And this process, while it may be more expensive for the companies or schools that are foregoing it, or going through it, it is much less expensive for the families who don't have to pay $60 every time the student has to take an SAT, or buy an SAT tutor, or buy an SAT book, or buy an SAT prep box. So that's, and again, the unreliableness of this comes in when, again, students sometimes get scores better than others. I mean, you can have students who take this test twice and they score 200 points different the second time. I mean, these tests are, by their very nature, unreliable. Moving on again, though, they discriminate. and this was our second point, and I believe it still stands, that the more money you have, the better you're going to do. The opposition, all they said was that you're going to have this bias anyway. But we believe, as the government, that removing this, the standardized testing, will provide a better system so that students are able to not be judged when they're 17 or 18 or even earlier in grade school, and so that they'll be able to continue their maturation process until they become full-grown citizens, and then they're given equal opportunity just like everyone else. So for these reasons, I urge that we abolish standardized testing. Thank you.
Sure.